Isn't that just so pretty? I just love it. I think that's beautiful. Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to be making another swimsuit top. And this one, again, it's from ZigZag Patterns and it's called the Layla Bikini Top Pattern, and it's a halter style. On ZigZag Patterns you can get the pattern for free, and she already does have a great tutorial on how to sew it up. Her technique is really different. I've never seen anybody quite do it the way she does it, but it works and it's great. That is if you want to make it reversible. If you do want to make it reversible, that technique is going to work great for you. But just keep in mind, you're always going to see the other color shadowing through at the edges. So I'm going to show you just an alternative technique where you just won't see the inside color at the edge. I'm actually going to be using the same technique that I used on the bikini top pattern in this video. I'm going to make a couple optional adjustments in terms of the way the straps go and the way it ties at the back. It also gives you a way of slipping in a cup if you want extra coverage. And I think that this halter style from ZigZag Patterns is really, I think my students will like it, and I think it's really on trend right now, this halter style. So definitely check out ZigZag Patterns Layla Halter Style Bikini Top. Check that out. But then if you want a different technique of doing it, it's not reversible, then this technique will work great for you. What I have is just a small piece. I'm just making the top today, so it's just a small piece. It's about like 14 by 20 inches. And then I also have some long pieces, like the full width of the fabric are 60 inches long. I've got 2 of these straps. For the lining, you could use either the mesh style lining or any lightweight nylon knit. And the other thing that I'm going to be using is more of this swimsuit elastic. That is the one that's actually labeled swimsuit elastic so that it stands up better to salt water and chlorine. It's the same one I used in the string bikini video. And I will definitely be using my serger for this project, but you don't have to. You can definitely get away with zigzagging. That'll be fine. So the only other things you're going to need are matching thread, some pins, and your sewing machine. So I'm glad to have you along for the ride today. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's jump right in. So this is the Layla Reversible Halter Bikini Top from ZigZag Patterns. And I just wanted to show you, I really like how she prints the patterns. If you've ever printed off PDF patterns before, then you know that sometimes it's hard to know exactly how much to overlap your paper. But these lines that she puts on here, I've never seen them done exactly like this before, but it really does make it so much easier. Like your paper just overlaps to that line and to this line, and it works out pretty perfectly. So yes, so far I love this pattern. And it's really just 2 pieces, the front and the strap, but I'm going to be changing the strap. So my pattern piece is all cut out, but I'm actually going to fold it in half and cut it on the fold. So I'm also folding my fabric in half along the lengthwise grain. And of course you want to make sure that your fabric has the 4-way stretch, that it stretches in both directions. That's really important anytime you're making swimwear. And it just barely fits on there, so that's pretty good. Before I cut though, I'm going to layer on my lining. And this is just that mesh lining. I do like it. It isn't the prettiest, but it keeps everything nice and lightweight. So I like the function of it, and it's not going to show at all. Not even around the edges. And you can use weights and a rotary cutter or pins and scissors. To make a space where you could slip in a cup if you wanted to, I'm going to be cutting off the lining 4 inches in. I'm just going to curve it around like that. Good. So that'll make a nice opening to put that cup in. This strap piece here is a little less than 1.5 inches, let's say 3 centimeters wide. The length for the medium would be about 14 inches. Okay, I'm going to be changing the way this ties. You can definitely just go by the instructions in ZigZag Pattern's own tutorial, where you've got to tie the top and a tie around the body. But I'm going to play around with that and see if I can make a nice cross back, and even give an option for a double cross back. So I have straps that are that same width as the pattern, but they're the full width of the fabric long. They're 60 inches long, which you might not need the full 60 inches, but I wanted to leave it until I'm done and then cut off what I don't need. Instead of having ties that come out of the back, I'm just going to put loops there for a tie to pass through, and I'll do the same thing about midway along. I'll put a loop there for the tie to pass through as well. So for my first sewing step, I have the fabric laying with the good side down. So this is the wrong side of the fabric. And then I'm placing the lining on top of it, matching up all of the edges. Now I will be using a serger for this project, but you can do this entirely on your regular machine. If you are doing it on a regular machine with the 2 layers like this, you're just going to zigzag all around the outside edge. But if you're on the serger, I don't really love to take pins to the serger if I don't have to, so I'm going to put a few pins and then I'll do a basting stitch around those edges. I won't be basting around here or this edge. We want to keep that open, but I'll be basting the bottom and the top edges, and then I'll serge around the whole thing. But if you're zigzagging, you'll just zigzag around the whole thing. For my basting stitch, I'm using a stitch that's 5 millimeters long, just sewing fairly close to the edge, like less than the edge of my presser foot. A nice sharp pivot at that corner. I'm using a regular universal needle, but if I notice that my machine is skipping stitches, I'll switch to a stretch needle. Good, so now I'll be serging around the whole outside edge, pivoting around the corners. If you've never done a sharp pivot on a serger, what you want to do is serge until your needles clear that edge. Once your needles are past the edge, that's when you're going to lift them up, lift up your presser foot. Sometimes you have to give it a wiggle and then come in around the other side. Okay, so I've serged all the way around. There's our gap where the cup can go in if you want. And any place where my basting stitch is showing outside of the serging, I can just remove that. The basting stitch has done its job now, so anywhere that it shows, I can just remove it. Okay, good. So when I was serging, my fabric got folded in there, but I'm not even worried about it because it'll get captured into that seam, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now that my whole edge is serged, it's time to put on the swimsuit elastic. So I'm going to start with the neck edge here, and I'll be sewing the swimsuit elastic just to that serged edge. In fact, around the neck here, I don't even think I'll be stretching at all, just because I don't want the curve to pull and bind around the neck. Also, I don't want to start right at the corner. I want to start about a thumb width away from the corner. Otherwise, the corner just gets a little bit too bulky. And I am still using that long basting stitch. So my elastic is still attached to the spool. I'm not cutting off sections until I know exactly where to cut. And then on the sides, I'll be doing the 10% stretch. You hold up your elastic to a ruler, measure out 10 inches, stretch it to 11, and that's the amount of stretch that you want to put on the sides here. Just get used to what that feels like. Stretch it just that little bit. And I'm not stretching the fabric at all, just the elastic. Here I'm keeping the elastic going straight and I'm swinging around the fabric to meet it. And then stopping about a thumb width from the end there. And I know some people like to do this step at the same time that they're doing that serging, and to me that's just a little too much to control at once, and so I like to serge first and then baste on the elastic. And then the second side. That's it for the elastic, and now we go on to straps. Got this folding right sides together. I'm going to serge that edge together, but you can sew it on the regular machine. Just make sure you're stretching as you go. There are some stretch stitches you can use on most machines. Just test it out, see which one you like, but make sure you're holding it in a stretched out position as you sew. On the serger you don't really have to because the serging stitch is stretchy. So I don't ever feel any need to put elastic into a strap like this. It's stretchy and stable enough. And that swimsuit elastic isn't the cheapest, so I like to use it more sparingly. I just put it onto a safety pin and then dive that pin all the way through. Make sure your safety pin is small enough to fit in there, but strong enough that it's not going to get all bent as you're pushing it through. And it's just push, 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 and pull. You can use a loop turner to turn your straps if they're short enough, but these 60-inch long ones are just too long for a loop turner. Okay, and then there's the satisfying part. It just comes out now. So both my straps are turned. The first thing I'll do is just cut off that kind of ridgy selvage. Then off of each piece, I'm going to cut 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches long off each strap. Okay, good. So now my straps are still the same length because I've cut 2 pieces off of each. Good, so those will be the little loops that my strap can pass through. So the halter piece, I want to take the 2 gigantically long straps. They're now 55 inches each. And I want to just put them on the right side of the fabric, coming down from one of the corners. And if you saw the video about the string bikini, this is exactly the same technique I'm using there. I think it might be easier if you do have a little bit more of the strap sticking out, and it certainly doesn't do any harm. So let's leave a little bit more of the strap sticking out there and here. So I know this seems completely upside down, that of course you want the strap going up. It's going to end up going up like this, but we first sew it with it coming down. And so now I'm just going to go back to the regular machine and do a back tack just across there. And I'm switching back to a regular length stitch and just doing a strong back tack right across that strap on both sides. And then the loops. So I'll be taking my 2.5 inch long piece and folding it into a U shape. And then placing it inside the serging. I don't want it to overlap the serging because I'll be turning down that edge. Even if I have to overlap the ends of the loop, that's fine, but I don't want to overlap this serging. So there's one, the other end the same. It's coming into the halter, not sticking out. It will end up going out, but we sew it going in. And then somewhere along the middle of that side, I'm going to put another loop. Make sure I get them even. All right, so just a little back tack across all 4 of those loops. I want to make sure that loop stays together. Don't let the presser foot push it out of the way. And I'm sewing this closer to the edge, like somewhere in the midst of the serging, not past the serging. Okay, so our loops and straps are all in place. And now it's the last step. So the loop is going to now fold so that it's facing out, and then we're going to be wrapping these edges around it. And I'm going to switch to a zigzag stitch that's 3 by 3, and I'm just going to be zigzagging. You might have to give it a bit of a tug at the beginning to help it get started. I'm aiming for this loose edge, not the folded edge. In fact, if my stitch comes on and off of that edge, that's perfect. And then again, I'm stretching it out a little bit as I sew. Get that tight wrap around the loop. And then pivot at the corner and prepare the other side to wrap tightly around as well. And we'll keep going around the whole outside edge. So the loop is just going to stick out like that. So now I'm coming around to that top corner where it's very skinny. And it'll be the same idea though. The strap will fold down and both sides of the elastic will wrap around tight. So it's just going to give a really nice corner there. And I just need to make sure that the strap is all tucked in and I'm doing that nice tight wrap. This is the curve of the neckline here, and I just want to make sure I'm making a nice shape. Make sure that it's staying nice and even and the curve is smooth. And then prepare my wrap on this side. Strap folds down and the fabric, the two serged edges wrap around nice and snug. I don't really love to pin all of this ahead of time because you end up kind of organizing twice. But if it does make you feel more comfortable to have this all pinned before you start sewing, definitely go for it. And that is it for the sewing. So now we're just going to trim off any loose threads. You can also trim off any, like if the strap is coming out too long. I think it is handy to have that bit when you're sewing, but after you're done sewing you don't need it. You can trim that off. Let's see what it looks like on a dress form. Okay, so there it is. That was really quick and I think it's just beautiful. I just love it. I just think that is so clean and elegant and beautiful. I haven't put the cups in yet. You can certainly put them in through the space that we left. They're totally optional. The other thing that's optional is the loop at the side here, but I think it's quite nice. It does a couple of nice things. First, it keeps the fit really nice and controlled. The suit's not going to be gaping at the side here. The other thing that it does is makes this beautiful double crisscross at the back, which I just think is so pretty. I just love that. If you didn't have the side loop, it would still give you just one X as you bring it down to the bottom loop. That would be pretty as well. So there's the finished product. I just think it's gorgeous. I hope you like it too. I hope you had fun watching today's video. I hope you learned something. And if you learned something, you know what you gotta do. You gotta hit that subscribe button. And why don't you go ahead and click the notification bell as well so that you know every time I upload a new video. Because it's great to have you along. I'm really happy to have you along today and look forward to sewing with you next time. Until then, you take care.